All eyes are on the Auburn quarterback battle. And look, if you're Robby Ashford or Zach Calzada, you may be running out of time.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining us as he does every single Tuesday, Auburn message board legend Charlie 5, burning the world down, but making us feel nice and comfortable here on the show. Look,
hey, I'm tired of all the panic. I'm tired of all the panicking. I'm super booging tonight. I got the Auburn hat, Auburn shirt. We're booging. We're going to get excited. We're 15 days away, 16 days away from kickoff. Let's do this thing.
I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. Look, it's crunch time, though. I mean, everybody's paying attention to this Auburn quarterback battle. And looking at it, let's assume all the reports are true of folks that went to the scrimmages. And, you know, if we're deciphering and, you know, what Bryan Harsin said in the post-scrimmage presser, let's assume we're all correct here and that TJ Finley is the clear leader in this quarterback battle. Let's assume all that is true. If you're Zach Calzada or Robby Ashford, if you're going to win the job, you need to start delivering. I mean, it needs to happen now. Auburn has 3 scrimmages. Obviously, one was this past weekend. The second one is Friday, just a few days away. And that third one is really more of a dress rehearsal. A lot of you do a golf show. Friday is going to be moving day, right? I mean, Friday is going to be where pretty much the vast majority of the depth chart is solidified, unless it's super close. It doesn't sound like it's that close right now at a lot of positions. In your mind, I mean, Zach Calzada, Robby Ashford, if they were to win the job, what do they have to do right now?
Oh, man. I mean, again, I want to back up really quick. You know, last year, the first scrimmage, there's a lot of reactions because it's the first time there's going to be moles inside that are giving you notes and things like that, even though it's close to the media. And, you know, bottom line is, like you said, Ashford and Calzada are far behind where TJ is right now. And if you're going to make a difference, no matter how much you want to downplay the seriousness of the first scrimmage, you got basically 3 practices and another scrimmage. And then, hey, we're almost a game week prep. Like what I mean, it's almost time to start prepping for Mercer or whoever it is we play first. So the clock is definitely ticking. And if I'm Calzada, I'm really concerned because I had sort of the expectations that I was going to come in and get the job. And I honestly think, you got to think from a coaching standpoint too. You know, if you bring a guy in that you think is going to be the guy, you want him to win outright so that there's no controversy or there's no whatever. And I think ultimately Harsin's going to pick the guy that's going to give him the best chance to win. If that's TJ, if it's Robby, if it's Calzada. But man, you're talking about it's getting to crunch time, and the reports were pretty bad, especially on Zach, unfortunately. So a lot of ground to make up, and the clock's ticking every day. It's getting closer. I don't know what can you really do in practice to I mean, what can you really do? I guess. I mean, do they just have throwing competitions? I mean, how do you make up? It seems like from the reports we got,
it sounds like the message that Bryan Harsin wanted not only the media and fans to hear, but I think he was talking to his team a little bit too through us on Saturday night, was I think he wants command. I think he wants a quarterback to come in and command the offense. Yes, passing the football is important, but he just talked about TJ Finley's ability to lead the offense and understanding where everybody needs to be. Then he gave an example of, you know, if the quarterback goes up there and the running back's on the wrong side of you and you don't correct it, like that's on you. And it's like, well, he didn't just say that. That happened either to Zach or Robby, probably based on you know, just reading in between the lines there.
There was a delay of game. There was only one delay of game, and that was under Calzada. That was when Calzada was in. So delay of game 9 times out of 10 is either I can't diagnose the defense, I can't get us in the right play, or there was somebody dropped the ball on getting the play in, and it's usually not going to be that in a scrimmage. So when you talk about command, I mean, that's got to be a strike against Calzada right there. The only time there was a delay of game, he was the guy in there. So you're right.
Which is pretty remarkable that there was only one in the first scrimmage of fall camp. Like,
pretty solid.
I think that's a win. I think it's a win.
Right.
It is, though, interesting. The one drive Calzada was in with the ones. Yeah. They scored a touchdown. That was his touchdown pass to Shenker.
It was the first play, and it was a goal line. It was goal line. It was like a red zone scenario. And they said that he obviously made a good throw, but the catch was pretty daggum solid to Shenker too. But yeah, that was the only reps he got with the first team for whatever reason. And he threw a touchdown on his first play. So
yeah, I mean, obviously it's telling. I mean, the fact that he didn't take that many reps with the ones I think that says something.
It should say something.
Yeah, there's no question about it. So that's part of it. But maybe they look and they liked what he did with the ones. They did score. I don't think it's going to matter. I'm just thinking, for all the folks out there that are like, oh no, not Finley, please let it be Calzada or Robby. It's like, I think it's going to take something like that, some realization or something that the coaches really liked on tape, but it just didn't really sound like there was much to like when the other two guys were in. And
the gap is just really
seems
wide.
Pretty large. It seems pretty large right now. Yeah. So we'll see what that means. We'll see. I mean, there's no way they announced it before the second scrimmage, right? Like, there's no way
No, I mean, even though Harsin did say we got to start making some decisions, or he said some words, or he made some statements that were kind of alluding to that.
Yeah, I think his verbiage was too deep. Got to figure out the too deep.
Yeah, so that could be more motivation than anything. But I just wonder. I just got to wonder what's going through your head as a. I don't want to say that they're just they had completely written off TJ from the beginning, but like, you got to wonder. You don't bring in two transfers that you would think to just, especially with Calzada, the situation of getting on him early and getting him in. You don't feel. I don't think you really feel like that guy's going to come in and sit, or you kind of have a plan that he's going to be the guy. And from what I've heard from the early fall camp is like, it's just not there. It's just we were very excited. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Super excited about all the videos we've seen and the rapport that he's been building. But like, when the pads have gone on, it's not been there. It hadn't been really close.
Just because TJ didn't put videos out there doesn't mean he wasn't working. So
exactly.
Props to TJ. I mean, the mental toughness of everybody counting you out and you still kind of showing up.
Yes.
Working, like, props to him, man. Like, seriously, that is so hard to do.
Huge.
Especially it seemed like at times last year, like he wasn't really ready to be that backup when it was towards the end of the season. I think he learned from that. I think he learned, like, no, I need to prep. Like, look, I need to be a good quarterback. Like, I can take that step. And I think he did it.
No, for sure. And most kids, and I know, I mean, what does that say to you when you're there's nobody in front of you and the coach goes out and brings in two quarterbacks? Like, even if he talks to you about it beforehand and says, hey, look, we're going to have an open competition. You're going to have every chance to whatever, blah, 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 blah. Like, subconsciously, or like in the back of your mind, you got to think, there's got to be something that makes you feel like maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe they don't believe in me. And that would make most kids wilt. And it seems like it's driven TJ. And he is performing the most consistent. And that's what we said we wanted. We just wanted somebody on the corner message board the other day, Keith Niebuhr said, who do you want to be the starting quarterback? Which I thought was an interesting question. And like, I was surprised that a vast majority of the people that responded, that it wasn't an agenda of who they wanted. It was just who could be the most consistent. Because I think that's what we've been craving for over the last 3 years is we love the highs, we hate the lows. Can we just get something that we can just consistency moving forward?
Yeah, so I think with this roster, an average SEC quarterback makes us a pretty good team.
I think so too. I think there's a lot of things,
especially if these receivers can be as good as we think they can be.
I think that's been the surprise to me so far, coming out, is how the report, and it could be a strategic marketing from the football department to kind of pump up that room. But like, there's been a ton of good PR coming out of that was wide receiver room. Koy Moore, there was 2 times Zach Calzada missed him reportedly in the scrimmage where he's just running wide open. Like, he's just that crafty, he's that crafty guy that knows how to get open, and could have had 2 catches for 30+ yards, but just got missed. So yeah, if you just get somebody that can just hit those throws, and y'all talked about TJ being a 55% passing quarterback last year. I mean, if we can just get to a little bit above 60, and not a lot of mistakes, with as good as our defense is,
right,
the different playmakers we have, you could be pretty good.
I thought of a player comp for Koy Moore. Do you remember Stevie Johnson with the Bills? Did you ever watch him?
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Yeah. There's nothing flash, like it's not anything super flashy. He just gets open and makes catches.
It's like, he's a really good receiver. Yeah,
and awesome fantasy receiver for that, like couple year stretch.
Yeah, especially if you get like PPR and stuff. No question about it. All right, Charlie 5. I was asked a question on my radio hit on WNSP yesterday about the quarterbacks. I want to get your thoughts on it in just a moment. Hey, today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the best place to wager on anything sports. They also have lines on reality TV shows. They've even got some casino stuff if you're into that sort of thing. But everything is over at BetOnline, including a ton of football futures for both college football and the NFL. The season is so close. Charlie 5 just mentioned it. I mean, we are just weeks away. So be sure you're ready. Be sure you're ready. Go to BetOnline, get your bearings straight, maybe place a couple future bets just to kind of get that muscle memory back and ready and going. Just check it all out. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, Charlie 5, I was asked the following question when I went on WNSP yesterday down in Mobile. I was asked in response to, he wanted my thoughts on TJ, and I'm like, sounds like he's leading the job. Sounds like he's leading the way. He then Dave Schultz asked me, does it have to do with, like, is TJ winning it, or is he just kind of the least bad? And I've seen a lot of people saying that on Twitter and in the Locked On Auburn Discord, and it's a pretty common talking point, especially for folks outside of Auburn. I'm seeing that a ton. What's your take on that?
So for it to be the second part, being the least bad, you have to automatically assume that TJ's bad and he can't get better. So that has to be like the auto assumption is that last year is the rule for him, the last 5 games, and you're comparing that to what the other guys are doing. So you're saying, okay, those last 5 games were terrible. There's no question about it. They were really 4 or 5 games. They were really bad. So if these guys can't beat him out, they must be worse than even that. So that to me is a false sort of starting point, because yes, it was hard to watch at times last year. Y'all made a great point today, I thought, when you said, you explained it pretty well too, saying he was sort of set up for failure. You got towards some of the more pressure-packed games towards the end where you got to have wins. Bo goes down. It wasn't like the coaches set him up on purpose to fail, but it was like the scenario just kind of said it was not really right for him to succeed.
Yeah, the receivers were banged up. The offensive line was banged up. You couldn't run the football. Like, it was just a bad situation for him to be in. Yeah,
right. So you take the false assumption. That's the only way you can come out to me with everybody. Everybody stinks because TJ stunk for the last 5 games of the year. So these guys must stink even worse than that level of play. When you're healthy now, you got new playmakers on offense. You got another year of the offensive line gelling, and it looks like we've cemented the tackle spots. And that was one of my biggest question marks, and it seems like that's not even a remotely a question mark, is the tackle position. And that's why I think that from a fan perspective, from an outsider perspective, you have to start there to come up with that answer. It could just be that consistency, leadership. TJ is just better at that right now. He's just better at that, and it's going to be hard for these other two guys to unseat him for the equity that he sort of built the first couple of weeks in camp.
Right. And also, like, we know what Zach Calzada was at A&M. And once again, he was put in a situation where it's like he was kind of, I don't know, it was trial by fire for his first several weeks at A&M.
Right.
Like they didn't go in the season thinking he'd be the guy either, which is a less extreme example of what TJ had to go through, but there are similarities there. I do think if you build around the quarterback in the fall, it's definitely going to help you. You get more reps with the ones, and obviously you're more healthy at the start of the season. And I say this all the time, like over the course of a year, you're supposed to get better every single week. And then when you lose your quarterback towards the end of the season, the last month of the season, everybody's been getting better every week. And then you take this massive step back because your backup quarterback's not where he needs to be because he's not the starter. Like that's a normal thing to happen. When your starting quarterback goes down, your team gets worse. Like that's just how it is.
It happens literally everywhere that happens. Is the team is not going to be as good when you have the backup quarterback in. It's just not. Believe it or not, the backup quarterback is not always the better player.
Right. And so, and that essentially was my response when I was asked that question. I was like, it's not the same scenario. It's not. And I think there was a YouTube comment a few days ago, and I meant to grab the username because I just knew it was going to come up this week. In essence, they said, Charlie 5, they're like, Auburn fans need to get out of the mindset that guys can't get better from one year to the next.
Right.
I thought it was pretty powerful. I thought it was a little profound. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, absolutely. What the book is not written. He's still TJ's still really young. I mean, if you really think, he's basically a true junior? True, like third.
TJ's two things. He's really young, like you said. He's also really tall.
Yeah, very tall.
Can
you imagine? I know we joked about him on a moped, but can you imagine, or the whole helmet thing? But can you imagine what that looks like on a moped? You remember the pictures of Cam when he was on one, and he looked like he was just like he could eat it.
Right.
Because he's just such a big human. And TJ's taller than Cam.
TJ is a massive dude. Like, he's huge.
Prototype. He really is a prototype NFL quarterback body. Like he's really everything you can ask for.
I think if he comes out and somehow throws for 3,500 yards or something like that, even if it's not flashy and even if the mechanics are wonky, there'll be some NFL teams that are like, he's really big. Like there's a chance.
So big.
He's really big.
Yeah.
Which is a fascinating conversation that we'll have later, maybe. But yeah, just the fact that he can take that step. And we've talked about this before. Like TJ has the traits. He's big. He's got a cannon. It sounds like he's a pretty solid leader. The locker room apparently really, really likes him.
Yeah.
Can he pull it all together? That's been the biggest question since spring.
To go back to your question, it does seem like fans, and I don't know that it's necessarily Auburn fans, it does seem like you can't get, if you have a bad year, there's like very little faith that you can be better. It's always you're either going to be that bad again or worse. Like you can't remotely get better. Like that's just, it seems like I don't know what that is, but it's like you finalize it, you write the check, and you're done with it. We got to move on. There's no possible way he could have been better.
Right. Let's pivot to NIL stuff. Charlie 5 has thoughts. Auburn's NIL collective has made a new hire. Let's talk about what it could potentially mean for Auburn athletics moving forward in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. I want to tell you about the Locked On Auburn Discord. It is free. All you have to do is click the link, and it will ask if you want to join it, and you do, and then boom, all of a sudden you're talking with a ton of Auburn fans all day, every day. It is a blast, and sometimes there's some drama. If you're not involved with it, you can just watch it, and Charlie 5's usually in the middle
of all of it.
All of it, yeah, so be sure to check that out. It's in the episode description down below, or if you're watching on your favorite or listening on your favorite podcast app, it's in the show notes. Just check that out there. Big news on the NIL front, Charlie 5.
Yeah, so it's being reported in a couple of different places that On to Victory, which is the new collective that bought out NIL
Yep.
has hired, should be a familiar name to a lot of folks. Brett Whiteside, he'll be the new director of On to Victory. And if you're wondering who that is, he was the director of football operations under Gus Malzahn. So he was Gus Malzahn's literally right-hand guy. He organized all kinds of recruiting events. He organized a lot of budgets that had to go with the team. Scheduling or organizing team travel, day-to-day, like different operations. He was a late liaison between, the administration and Tigers Unlimited, compliance. Those are all things that were not here prior under other different collectives. This is a new sort of strategy, and I'm really excited. Brett, was big in the community. A lot of folks loved him. Several mutual friends were really close with him, so it's exciting to see that, especially from that recruiting budget. And then the recruiting budget and compliance side, because those three things I feel like are extremely, extremely important.
Yes.
To not cross or blur lines and stay out of trouble and still be able to execute the way it needs to execute for Auburn to be successful.
Right. And so obviously it seems like there's been more traction for the 2024 class as far as setting things up for the future. And I guess that's okay. I like the way it's set up, Charlie 5, because it seems so independent of what the team itself is doing, that it doesn't matter. You don't have to start over all the time. It's set and it's running, just because, if a receivers coach goes and takes a job somewhere else or something like that, the NIL group should in theory have relationships already formed, which I think is nice.
Yeah, and he comes from Missouri, and I think he was the leader of he was basically, I'm trying to think who the equivalent, the top person in our off the field staff over recruiting. That's who he was at Missouri. And so you bring in somebody that is going to have that recruiting mindset. And then I feel like one of the things that the other NIL group did was they were a little bit sort of on an island, so to speak. There was not a lot of reaching across the aisle, so to speak. It was sort of like they were always at odds with either compliance and everybody was scared. We didn't really know what to do. Well, now you got a guy who literally did compliance for a living for Gus. So that, to me, you're remedying several different deficiencies in one hire.
It's a great hire. It's a no-brainer. And I don't know. I love the fact that you can say what you want about Gus, but the dude could recruit. He got talent at Auburn,
and Brett was the key to that.
Right. And it kind of got to the point where it's Auburn recruits itself. And now it's maybe it doesn't. Right.
But yeah, it's just staying power. The one thing that I talked about when we first started talking about On to Victory is that you asked me, how is this going to be better? And I said, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be better. I don't necessarily think it's going to be worse. I think it's going to be something that's sustainable. And when you see hires like this, it only solidifies that thought that they're doing the things that are going to make this thing be able to last and not just be, here and gone. They're putting the foundations in to be able to bridge the gap, so to speak. And wow, Brett's like the Golden Gate Bridge. He's a big guy, and he is able to reach across the aisle for a lot of different things and pull a lot of things together.
Bigger bridge. Brett Whiteside or Caden Bridges.
Brett Whiteside for sure.
Oh wow,
he's
Bridges is huge. Bridges is a big boy.
No, I've talked to several people, and everybody is really, really fired up about this. Alabama guy. When I say it, he's from Alabama. that recruiting piece is huge. So
we'll see what happens with it. We'll see what happens with it for
absolutely.
sure. Charlie 5, how can people find you, hear you, support you, all that good stuff?
Absolutely. Find me on Twitter at _Charlie_5. Zach already talked about it, but the Locked On Auburn Discord is awesome. Me and you will probably fight at some point in time when you join, but it's going to be fun. We're going to make up after it. We're going to have a lot of fun. The Auburn the Corner message board, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the Dad Bod Golf Pod. Be
sure to check all of that out. And you can find all of my written work at auburndaily.com. And we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Auburn.